Please welcome our keynote speaker for the day, Shri Tarun Shridhar.
Thank you so much for this introduction, and thank you, Dr. Shukla. There were already butterflies fluttering in my stomach out of nervousness that how would I address such an august gathering, and you have put greater pressure on me. Ms.Alka Upadhyay, Secretary, Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying; Dr. O.P. Chaudhary, Joint Secretary, Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying; Shri Dhumal, Dr. Shukla, Dr. Vijay Makhija. I'm sorry, I will not be able to take everybody's name. All the highly distinguished poultry professionals, people from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me at the outset tell you whatever was presented on the screen about me was quite a bit of exaggeration. I have no claim for being much knowledgeable about the sector. Whatever little I have gained is on account of a quirk of fate that I got posted on 2 occasions in the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, and managed to hold charge of these sectors for a good period of 8 to 10 years. So partly I owe it to that experience, but much more I owe to my very healthy and engaged interaction I have had with several of you individually as also collectively. Whatever I'm going to speak today is only on account of whatever I have gained from you. If I don't speak well and if you feel that I have not really added on to any knowledge, rather exposed my ignorance, the fault lies with me. Probably I was not a good student. Why is poultry so critical and important? In the entire livestock sector, which includes dairy, fisheries, sheep husbandry, goatery, etc., it is poultry which literally rules the roost. None of the subsectors of the livestock sector have had such a smooth run as poultry has had. And this is a situation which has emerged globally. There have been minor hiccups in terms of some disease outbreaks, in terms of market upheavals, but poultry is one sector which has always bounced back. And rarely have there been incidents or events wherein poultry would have registered a negative growth. That is why when we compare poultry with the dairy and other subsectors of the livestock and animal husbandry sector, we find that over a period of time, poultry actually has emerged as an industry and not just a subsidiary agricultural activity. Poultry has got integrated, poultry has got organized. Poultry is being managed on business principles and industrial principles rather than just subsistence agriculture. It has grown and evolved from a supplementary backyard activity, which it was a few decades back, to a highly organized activity and being managed on very sound modern business principles. That is why poultry is unique as far as the entire animal husbandry sector is concerned. Maybe it is on account of very advanced scientific research in genetics, in production methodology. Maybe it's on account of the resilience of the product, the raw material itself. After all, fowl was one of the first animals to be domesticated. The first one, I'm told, was the wild dog, which was domesticated. Thereafter, fowl was the first animal which was domesticated. Today, I think amongst all the land animals, 80% is chicken, is the fowl. And interestingly, the domestication of jungle fowl is said to have taken place in the Indian subcontinent. This is what the famous biologist Charles Darwin's theory is, that it was the Indus Valley where the fowl was initially domesticated, and from here the fowl thereafter migrated to other places. And it's also very interesting. Now today we associate, sorry, I'm just digressing a bit. We associate chicken with meekness, with somebody who's very weak. He's chickening out. He's behaving like a chicken. But actually, initial domestication of fowl was for fighting. And fowl was the symbol of strength and bravery. And now we find that this animal has become very, very docile. Now, growth of poultry has always been very consistent, and it has not been matched by any of the other sectors of the entire food production economy. Now, normally in terms of benchmark of economic development, it is considered to be what the OECD countries have achieved. What is their standards? Now, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has done a study, and it says that for the last 3 decades, the study is from 1990 onwards, that in the last 3 decades, the consumption of beef and pork has remained stagnant. There has been no growth as far as over the 3-decade period. There has been no growth as far as the consumption of beef and pork is concerned. However, during this period of 3 decades, the consumption of poultry meat has increased by 70%. So this is the huge gap. This is the kind of lead which poultry has taken over other this thing. Now, it's a very interesting, let me just read the data from the same FAO study, the Food and Agriculture Organization study. It is projected that between 2000 and 2030, the per capita demand of poultry would register a growth of 271% in South Asia. And what is South Asia? South Asia is primarily India. In 3 decades, the growth will be 271% in South Asia, as against less than 100% in other regions of the world. So this is the place where poultry is to grow, and this is the opportunity which we should all be capitalizing upon rather than just sitting on the laurels which we have already. Now, Mr. Dhumal also mentioned, Dr. Shukla also mentioned as far as the importance of poultry in terms of food and nutritional security is concerned. Now, while poultry has been having a very great and a dream run so far, it is not without challenges, and there are some very serious challenges. The theme of the Knowledge Day is shaping the future. While we consider how to shape the future, let us dwell a little bit in the past also. Dr. Makhija, you asked me a question yesterday when we met Dr. Makhija in the evening. The first question he asked me, why did India lose the World Cup final? This was the first question. And I'm sure this question would have emerged in several minds also, and everybody would have had his own theory. Now, when I compare it with poultry, I say that the dream run was being shared with poultry by the Team India, by a streak of endless victories. Now, sometimes you have to wake up from the dream. And that is where the poultry has to address the challenges. Honorable Secretary, Animal Husbandry Dairying is here. I have held that position. I have not been able to be successful in several of the challenges which the poultry industry faces. One of the challenges which is always there is the maize and soya prices. Now, unfortunately, poultry industry does not have much control on it. The nodal department in the government of India which deals with it has very little control on it. While various industry organizations and the factions have been time to time successful in putting enough pressure on the government to do some kind of a regulation or some kind of monitoring of various commodity prices, somehow we have not been able to, as a sector, as an industry, being able to convince the government. There are some degree of regulation and oversight on maize and soya prices needs to be looked into. Secondly, the issue of GM crops. We have to now impress upon the government that it is no more an ideological issue or an issue of belief, but it is an issue in terms of what is best for our economy. These are the two major threats which have been before the poultry sector for quite a bit of time. I would say that I, as the Secretary of the Department, probably failed in addressing these issues. But I would pose a question to you whether industry as a whole, like there's a knowledge there are more than 1,000 people sitting here, probably thousands are going to participate in Poultry India. But have you as a body projected these issues before the policymakers in the right earnest and in the right perspective so that you could influence decision making? That is a question which you have to introspect and answer yourself. And if not, maybe take some corrective steps now. If yes, find out where we went wrong and why could we not exert that pressure? Why could we not carry that influence over the policymakers on these issues? You see, I'll just go back a little bit in time in terms of the poultry sector. While the achievements of poultry sector are quite laudable, and it has held its fort even during the worst of times in the COVID pandemic, wherein there was a despondency all over, and poultry sector was one of the worst sectors to suffer. It has really bounced back. And credit goes to each and every one of you and every stakeholder of the poultry sector. However, let me do some plain speak also. You see, first wave of avian influenza, it was 2006-07, around 2005-06-07. I remember I was heading the Himachal tourism that time in my state. So we had a board of directors meeting, and after board of directors meeting, there was lunch, and one of the items in the lunch was chicken curry. The chief minister got suddenly very upset and angry. He said, "Don't you know that there is bird flu all around and you are serving chicken?" Now, I tried to convince him, but he was not convinced. Now, I can understand that was the first time the country was facing the challenge of a pandemic of this kind of a nature, and we didn't know how to handle it. But have we ever gone public and enlightened the public that there has not been a single case of human being infected by avian influenza in India? We have, this is not in public domain. So surprisingly, even when the second wave of this avian influenza pandemic came 2 years back, how did we respond? We responded by banning the movement of poultry, even banning the movement of eggs. We stopped serving poultry and eggs in our dishes. And the general, despite an advisory issued, a strong advisory issued by the Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying, some of the states and industry and even the hotel and hospitality industry was not convinced because they felt that if we serve chicken or eggs, etc., we might be losing customers. There was not even a whisper from the poultry industry in terms of educating people as to what is avian influenza and how is it that this disease is a disease of primarily wild birds. If some domesticated birds are infected by this disease, it does not carry, once the food is cooked, it does not carry to human beings. And even worldwide, over the last 20, 25 years, there have only been 400 to 500 cases of humans getting infected with avian influenza. And these humans were also those humans who were actually handling the birds in large numbers on a regular basis. Now, why I'm giving this example is that why was industry silent? Where has the 80s campaign of Sunday ho ya Monday, Rose Khao Ande? That jingle vanished. Why did it vanish? We became complacent. We are growing. Whatever we are producing, we are selling. So, and unlike the other sectors of food production, we are consistently growing. We have to shed this complacency. Second example I'll give you was, in the year 2017, I think precisely I'll tell you it was Dr. Chaudhary will correct me if I'm wrong. I remember it was precisely March 2017 when the Law Commission of India submitted a report. Annexed with that report was a set of rules which said housing and transportation of poultry birds. Rules. Now, Law Commission of India is an advisory body under the Ministry of Law and Justice to advise the government in terms to how to draft various legislations and acts. How did they come into poultry? It is a mystery. One NGO wrote a letter to them that they very cleverly wrote to the Law Commission, not to the ministry, that the housing of poultry birds and their transportation is being done contrary to the principles of animal welfare and the rules need to be framed. Law Commission framed those rules and after framing the rules, it submitted those rules to the Ministry of Law and Justice, not to the department. Now the NGO took a copy of those rules and challenged the entire poultry business in the High Court of Uttarakhand, subsequently in Delhi and several high courts. And one fine morning, an order of the High Court lands on our table saying that henceforth there shall be no battery cages. Now, if there are battery cages, we have to face contempt of court. I remember Mr. Khatri from Haryana, he came running with a few people and Mr. Chaudhary, we started doing a bit of a firefighting and suddenly the NGOs became very aggressive. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, even then, the industry was silent. Industry was by and large silent. We didn't hear one unified voice from the industry. It was only the Department of Animal Husbandry which was fighting a little bit along with the help of a few individuals here and there, commissioning our own studies. And do you know what the recommendation of the Law Commission with respect to housing per bird was concerned? 1400 square centimeter. They said minimum space should be 1400 square centimeter. Without realizing, nobody realized that if that is to be implemented as per the order of the High Court, which is binding unless reversed, the entire poultry industry would shut down. And your egg, which costs ₹5 today, would cost ₹20. A chicken which costs 100 would cost rupees 500. I fail to understand why was the industry so silent? Why is it that we are not creating awareness of these issues? And it's not that you are creating awareness for any other purpose. You are basically trying to remove ignorance. So I would say two of the biggest challenges, sorry if I use strong word, the biggest challenges and threats which the poultry could face in future, despite the fact that we are doing very well. One is ignorance, other is arrogance. We have to shed both the ignorance as also the arrogance, address the ignorance with respect to bird flu, with respect to other things. Now there's the latest veganism is a lifestyle which is slowly emerging. Now, do you know what is the growth rate of plant-based meat analogs which are coming into the market? The growth rate, though not alarming, but we have to be awake now. It is the same as poultry. Poultry is growing at 8%, the market of plant-based is growing at 8%. Globally, it is going at around 14%, but in India, it is growing at around 8%. And what are we having? Unmutton keema. There's a dish I found called unmutton keema, veggie curry. Now, these items, now knowing the vegetarian population of this country, because vegetarianism in this country is not only a lifestyle, it is a personal belief. It is a personal sentiment and a personal belief. These products are not going to enter into the vegetarian food market. These products will encroach upon the market of meat products because they are substitutes of meat. But at the end of the day, somebody has to educate the people. For them also, benchmark is meat. If you are creating a food item, why do you have to benchmark it against meat? So they are being offered as substitutes of meat without realizing the grossly harmful effect they are going to have on human health. We need to be awake today to tell people about the challenges of this. I was very happy to note, because some time back, Dr. Shukla, if you recollect, I had written an article which said that the ambition of the government of India, as enshrined in the National Plan for Eggs, of 136 billion eggs production by the year 2025 was a bit too ambitious. And how are we going to reach there? I was very happy when Mr. Dhumal said that we are now number 2. And Dr. Chaudhary confirmed that we are already crossed 130 billion and we'll be 136 billion. So I think that deserves a big hand of applause by everyone. Now, you see, in terms of the growth of the poultry meat industry, we would always have the handicap in terms of a large population swearing by vegetarianism. And even the meat eating habits in our country are also a bit unique. A meat eater does not mean he eats meat every day. Probably in several of the families, you eat meat, you don't cook at home, but you eat meat outside. You don't consume meat on a particular days of a week because of some religious sentiments. You don't eat meat for long periods during certain festivals, etc., Navratra, Diwali, etc. So even if the meat-eating population has certain restrictions in terms of consumption of meat. However, egg is our great strength. And there is a word in English called eggitarian. Now, eggitarian word has been coined by Indians. Eggitarian is not a word which has been coined by an Englishman. Now, why can't we not promote egg as a milk supplement? That egg as a vegetarian dish and not as a non-vegetarian dish. Now, many of you know that, and I have been quoting it time and again. I'll just read the exact quote. The biggest brand ambassador of egg is no one else than the gentleman we call the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. In the year 1942, Mahatma Gandhi wrote a monograph called Key to Health. The title of the monograph was Key to Health. What does the Mahatma say in Key to Health? It says, eggs are regarded by the layman as flesh food. Eggs are regarded by the layman as a flesh food. In reality, they are not. A sterile egg never evolves into a chick. Therefore, he who can take milk should have no objection to take sterile eggs. Now, in this country, do you need a greater brand ambassador than a Mahatma who was known by the austerity of his life, etc., promoting egg? Now, it is very interesting. I am not sure how many of you would have known that this is what Mahatma Gandhi wrote in the year 1942. What I mean to say is that somehow the industry is, because it is growing in an auto mode. We are not really keeping ourselves alive to the various challenges and the issues which we might face in the future. We were mentioning in terms of exports. Now we are number two in eggs. But do we know that 50% of eggs are produced by 3 states only? 50% of our egg production is from Andhra, Telangana and Tamil Nadu. All 3 southern states. Does it have anything to do with geography? Does it have to do with geography, or probably our entire policy and the governance of the sector which needs to be looked into? So this growth, while very impressive, while very consistent, while to be lauded, is also a skewed growth. It is not a growth which the benefits of which are being spread all over. Secondly, we may be number 2 as far as egg production is concerned. Again, somewhere at the top as far as meat production is concerned. But when it comes to exports, global trade, we are probably somewhere below 30. I'm told countries like Lithuania and Turkey, etc., are above us. Now, this is again an issue which we need to look into. Lastly, and this is what is my firm belief, let us stop talking only in terms of quantity and numbers. We are producing 130 billion eggs. Great. what is the value of those eggs we are producing? If USA is number one, if USA produces 130 billion eggs and we produce 130 billion eggs, is the value and the quality of our 130 billion eggs superior to that, or at least the same as that, or not? We somehow, when we talk in terms of poultry, milk, meat production, we talk in terms of volumes and quantity. We don't talk in terms of value. We don't talk in terms of quality. And that is something in which in the entire gamut of animal husbandry, it is the poultry sector which can take lead because you are organized on sound management and business principles. In future, when you talk in terms of numbers or quantity, please talk in terms of the value that quantity is going to generate, so that the entire focus in terms of the integrated value chain becomes on rate of return and the kind of revenue generation this sector can create for everyone. I don't know whether I am entitled to speak more on this sector or not, because it's a knowledge day. And initially, when I saw the program on the website, I found that that there was this session on how to counter fake news, etc. It had been removed from there. But then I was told by Dr. Shukla there was some kind of a miscommunication. That session is there. Now, I was very impressed that there is a session for that. So that means there is a realization that the fake narrative which is there in public domain with respect to the integrity of the poultry products, including eggs, needs to be effectively addressed. Now, while how to counter is something which the professional expert who will speak on it will tell you, my humble request to you, please don't wait, counter there and then. Whenever a fake narrative emerges, you are an organized industry. In one voice, you should be countering that, and countering that on the basis of very robust, sound information and data. And as I told you, this data, everything is in public domain, be it with respect to outbreak of diseases or be it out of the health benefits or otherwise of the various poultry products. Now, egg is not only one of the richest sources of protein. I'm told that as far as the protein absorption capacity of the body is concerned, the only food item which beats egg is whey protein. And whey protein is not something you can be taking as a breakfast. It can at the best be a supplement. But egg can be a main dish. So egg is the nutritionists call egg as a reference protein. You know it, but public doesn't know it. Egg is low in cholesterol, but public thinks that egg is very high in cholesterol. Why I'm just saying these things is people sitting here would know. But you have to communicate it to people outside, so that to ensure that the dream, even when you are awake, you keep dreaming of growing up. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. I again submit that whatever I have said, whatever I have spoken, is what I have learned from you. I am not at all, I don't consider myself to be eminently qualified to speak on a day which is titled as Knowledge Day. But I hope I have come up to your expectations to some extent. I wish all of you the very best, and I wish Knowledge Day, as also the Poultry India, a great success. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen.